Hello, and welcome to the first tour of the Washington Terminal Company Model Railroad. My name is David Muse, and it's a pleasure to finally present something. I really wanted to be further along, to be honest with you, with the railroad before I actually posted something on YouTube. But hey, I've come long enough, and this is what you're looking at so far is just about a year and a month of progress. I've never built a model railroad before. I have built model trains, love to custom paint and all that good stuff, but this is my first venture into actually having a railroad. So without further jibber jabber and all that great stuff, let's move along. We're looking at the railroad from the east end. This is approaching into the yard here. Forgive the dabbled lighting there. And what I've done, since I do kind of have a space for it, I have double track main lines at the back, right there and there. Then I've got passenger right there, double freight arrive and depart, and then the yard. And on this end, that's all handled by its own ladder. This is a in and out yard. You can come in and go completely through it and out the other end back to the main line if you have to. If you're having issues with your main line, you need to close it down. You can use the arrival departure freight tracks for moving commerce across the rails. This comes down and moves into the middle of the yard here. And at the middle of the yard, I decided to put switches in. Now, I've seen in some model railroads people have done this, and in most people have not done this. A lot of track in the yard, but there's no way to cross over within the yard itself other than going all the way back up to your ladder at other end. So I decided, and it's not like I'm the first one to do this, to put tracks in the middle. Switches in the middle. So that way I don't tie, or whoever's working the yard at either end, you don't necessarily have to tie up the ladder. Just gives you some flexibility and also some other switching to go along on the layout. The track itself is all Pico, code 100 on the main lines. The passenger terminal on through all the yard track is code 83. I use all Insel Frog, and I use re-railers across these sections. This is the east end. This is mid-yard, and that module is west end. These modules are 8 feet long by 33 inches deep from front to back. It's an all NCE system with an SB5 power booster and EB1 for breaking up my districts. Main line is one district. Passenger terminal is another, along with its lead going in and out. Same with the two freight mains, which are right there. They have their own EB1, and the yard itself has two EB1s. One for the west end of the yard and one for the east end of the yard. What I did was, because I didn't want everything kind of ganged, and it still kind of got unbalanced, but hey, that's the way life works sometimes. The west end of the yard is handled by an EB1. And right here, you'll see I've taken the time. I didn't do it on those yet, I've got to. But I've taken the time to put in insulated rail joiners. The reason being, if you have a problem here, you don't have a problem anywhere else. Arthur Houston, thank you. Derek Glass of DG Model Works, thank you. Big Al Mayo, thank you. Had a little issue here. This has been the tricky part for me so far. Like I said, my first time doing this, a lot of tricks to learn, a lot of things to learn, not just tricks. but I've got to come back and tweak those a little bit. Now this is the west end going in and out from the yard or to the yard, whatever direction you're traveling. Once again, orientation here, main lines. This is the lead to the passenger terminal, or from the passenger terminal to the main, and these are the two freight mains. I want to run back for a second because you just noticed some switches, so real quick let me explain what I did. This is my passenger terminal all along here, pocket track and 2 tracks. So trains can arrive and depart there, but here I put a switch in that goes over to the freight main, or as I call it, the freight main, the arrival and departure track to be more accurate, comes around, and it can hit this switch, come through, come through, come through, come off the freight mains. They go out to the main line, and this takes you to a Y. There's a tail at that end. I've got to finish that up. And then there will be a lead out to that tail, and that will take you around to Ivy City, which I'll explain in just a moment. This is the west end of the yard, and that's the east end of the yard. Right now, I've got 24 feet that way. I've got 10, 12, 11 feet that way. Well, actually, there's another module that goes there, and I've got to finish the construction of the one that goes out off this end, and eventually, oh, by the way, this is the layout room back here that you're looking at. It will go out, come down, go down, come around right here, not down there, come around, and right here, it'll come up, big loop, come back over, and join back up over here. I don't have a basement. Well, my apartment is the basement, so why am I going to crowd myself up with a model railroad when I need a place to eat, sleep, live, and all of that? And the backyard's available. So my family thought it was cool, as long as it can break down. Well, all of this can break down. It's very light. I'm using everything I can to make it as light as possible, and actually I can handle these modules by myself. It's just frame construction and all foam. The heaviest part, and I kind of regret right now, was putting down the cork here through the yard. Nice look, but added a little bit of weight, but I can still handle it. Not a problem. This is the west end of the yard. What we were looking at was mid-yard. And like I said, it's all Pico, code 100 on the main line, and code 83 in the yard. Ivy City will be the same way. It'll be all code 83, except for the diesel engine facility. Then I'll have to get some transition tracks to go in and out of that, but I want to make that code 100 inside the facility itself, because locomotives will be sitting there and we want big heavy rail. I hope you like the tour of Washington Terminal Company, and just a little background on Washington Terminal Company. Washington Terminal Company is and was located here in Washington, D.C., and it serviced Union Station and areas around. It was more of a distribution hub also for Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, and eventually Chessie System, CSX. Pennsylvania used it quite a bit. And then at the south end of Union Station, you go across the Potomac River over into Virginia, and you run into RF&P territory, and also Southern ran through there, running their trains along with Seaboard and Atlantic Coastline going down south. So I grew up with a lot of railroad around in my neighborhood. I lived just outside of Union Station in an area called Northeast Washington. Maybe as the crow flies, 2 miles at most. And that's really stretching it. So I grew up watching the Capitol Limited go by as a kid when I was on my way to elementary school in the morning. Every morning, Monday through Friday, I saw the Capitol Limited, yes. And it excited me and still does. I like the new Amtrak stuff that's out. Not going to say I'm a big fan of it, but I like it, some of it. I'm more of the classic, what I would guess people call the glory days of railroading. You know, when you had Southern Seaboard, Atlantic Coastline, everybody had a railroad, and the engines they used, the colors they used, the schemes, the stylized look, even the diesels, even their diesel locomotives had flair to them. They had distinction. And, you know, that old equipment is fun to duplicate. Plus, as I've heard some folks say, this is my railroad. I run my railroad. But I'm not arrogant or anything, and I don't want to sound like that. But, yeah, it is kind of my railroad. So you'll see some odd things here, especially when it comes to locomotives. And I have an affection and affinity for EMD demonstrators, so you'll see quite a number of demonstrators. Well, I hope you liked the tour. Thank you very much for your time. And one last just overall shot for you. And forgive the camera work. Don't try this at home. This is bad. This is really bad. So for future reference, I'm going to try harder next time. All right? Thank you very much, and talk to you again soon. Peace.